Well, hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another one of our watch parties. A special hello to our members as well as all the mods. Thanks for being here. I didn't have one last night, and I actually didn't do my daily live stream this morning because I was feeling a little bit under the weather, but I'm feeling much better now. So we're back, and we're back to our regular, normal schedule. So I figured that tonight I would show a documentary of what Iran was like prior to the 1979 Islamic Revolution. And I'm feeling a little bit hopeful about this one. And the reason is because this documentary was actually produced in 1974. So, unlike a lot of the more, modern documentaries that were created post 1979 Islamic Republic, that has a lot of that, Islamic, like Islamist narrative and the communist narrative in there. Because this one is from 1974, I'm hopeful that it's not going to have any of that sort of, propaganda, fake news that the Islamists and the communists keep on pushing out. And, given some of the more difficult news that has been coming out of occupied Iran recently, especially with respect to the brutal murder of Omid Sardak, a 25-year-old Iranian man, just for the crime of wanting to live in a free Iran. Um, I figured we could use, a lighter documentary, something to, give us hope, especially for the Iranians watching, to give Iranians hope um, that we can go back to what Iran was before. But I also hope that for those of you watching either on the live stream or those of you who watch the recorded version of this, I hope it also gives you a little bit of insight into what Iran was like before 1979. We were a modern, Western, secular country and society. And, that's exactly what we're fighting to get back to. So a lot of you, ask, well, what's Iran going to look like the day after the Islamic Republic is overthrown? I can confidently tell you what Iran will look like because we've already experienced it. And so, what we are fighting for as a nation is to go back to what we had prior to 1979. So, in reality, Iran's past is also her future. So, with that, just a quick message for our viewers on X. دوستان اگه که دارین این لایو رو دارین روی اکس نگاه میکنین، اگه میخواین به ما به کانال یوتیوب هم بپیوندین. اگه دوست دارین و به زبون انگلیسی میتونین کامنتاتون رو اونجا بذارین که دوستای غیر ایرانی کامنتاتون رو هم ببینن. All right. For those of you who don't speak Persian, I basically just let our Iranian viewers on X know that if they want to share their comments with people, to join our English channel live stream on YouTube, and they can share their thoughts and comments there. So without further ado, let's begin. This documentary is called Iran Under the Pahlavi Dynasty, The Heirs of Cyrus the Great. Full documentary 1974 scanned in 4K. Our newly scanned documentary in 4K resolution from 1974 shows the state of Persia, I mean, the country's called Iran, not Persia, in the early 20th century and the rise to power of the Pahlavi dynasty, the founding of the modern imperial state of Iran with political and cultural changes to the everyday life, as well as its fate in World War II and the Cold War under the forced outside influence of the global superpowers and the further societal modernization under Shah Mohammad Reza until shortly before the outbreak of the Iranian Revolution. So let us get started. I am hopeful for this documentary. I'm hoping that it will, you know, provide an objective view of what happened, what occurred in Iran during the 20th century. Again, because this is from 1974, I have high hopes. So I'm actually going into this with a rating of 7 out of 10. Let's see what happens. Yeah, for anyone who also claims that Iran was always a Muslim country, it's all nonsense. Anyone who, actually bothers to take some time to look at what Iranians looked like and dressed like prior to 1979, you can easily see like the images that you're seeing right now. This could be any European city in the 70s, right?
Iran today, a country brimming with energy, exploding with construction and development, a dynamic state with a thriving capital. The most modern achievements under a monarchy dating back 2,500 years.
So that is the iconic um, that's a very iconic tower, right? That's called the Borj Shahiyat or the Shahiyat Tower. That was built in 1971. So at the time of the production of this documentary, this was only three years old at the time.
This was Iran, the old Persia, 3/4 of a century ago. Romantic scenes of the nomad's life. But in daily routine, wandering from snow-covered mountains in the north to the warmer plains in the south, fording streams and rivers with large herds of cattle and sheep, the struggle for survival, for the bare existence, was unbelievably hard.
Yeah, this is what Iran looks like before the Pahlavi dynasty came in and actually modernized the country. I mean, this video has to be from like over 100 years ago. The footage here.
For those who tilled the land, even for those in the villages, it was not much more comfortable. Obtaining water for irrigation, even with the help of wells like this one, and through underground canals, the qanats, was a strenuous undertaking. Usually, the soil belonged to a feudal landlord who owned mostly the whole village and many more like it, sometimes up to.
So remember in the other documentaries, guys, I talk about how when Reza Shah the Great, the first Pahlavi monarch who came to power, he actually started a process of land reforms, which continued with his son, Muhammad Reza Shah, who like they got rid of this feudal system, right? So one of the reasons that the landlords, and the clergy did not like the Pahlavi dynasty and accused them of being dictators is because the Shahs got rid of this feudal land system because all these people you're seeing here are serfs, right? It was basically modern day slavery. And then the Pahlavi dynasty abolished what you're seeing here right now. So the Islamic clergy didn't like that because all of a sudden, they didn't have access to the power and the land, and they didn't have access to slave labor. So that's where the whole, Islamic jihadi propaganda about the Shah being a dictator came from. It was because the Shah saw this and said, nope, we're not going to have this anymore. Like, we're going to eradicate serfdom and these feudal khans from the country. Everyone's going to be equal.
100 villages were the property of one landlord. So, what the farmers earned with all that hard work did not even belong to them. Generally, it was
See, all right, I'm going to go back because this is important. So this talks about the feudal um, landlord part.
obtaining water for irrigation even with the help of wells like this one and through underground canals. The Connaughts was a strenuous undertaking. Usually, the soil belonged to a feudal landlord who owned mostly the whole village and many more like it. Sometimes up to 100 villages were the property of one landlord. So, what the farmers earned with all that hard work did not even belong to them. Generally, it was divided into 5 portions. The first for the landowner, the landlord. The second for the man who provided the seed, the landlord. The third for the man who supplied the water, the landlord. The fourth for the man who provided the oxen, probably the landlord again. The peasant obtained but the last fifth, from which he had to pay taxes and try to support himself and his family.
Terrible. Right. So all of these like Islamic clerics who are currently governing, or who are currently holding Iran hostage, they supported this system because they got a cut from the landlord, and of course the landlords also supported this because they got everything. Um, so yeah, this is why these people uh, do not like the Pahlavi dynasty, right? I mean, you can also even see even like the women, like the women who wore hijab, they never wore like the black, blanket garbage bag type shrouds, right? That the current Islamists force women to wear. Even back then, the hijab that they wore, it was different colors, it was bright, and it wasn't like overpowering either, right? So keep that in mind as well. Keep that in mind when you're watching these videos from like 100 to 150 years ago of what Iran was like. It was never like the full on like garbage bag type chadors that the current Islamic regime forces Iranian women to wear.
In such poverty and ignorance, nobody cared for even the most modest hygiene. And there was no chance for a brighter future. Guards on the roofs of the mud huts, always alert for armed bandits or whole nomadic tribes who could attack at any time, and often did. None of these attacks could ever be filmed, but tribes like these defied all attempts to pacify the country. Travelers through the countryside paid tolls to those tribes, who in turn protected them against attacks, or just refrained themselves from robbing them.
So it's basically like the wild, wild west.
But even if the travelers bought relative security from the bandits, the condition of the roads made each journey a hazardous adventure. The Caravanserai, a fortified place providing shelter for the caravans at night, a trading center by day. But not a totally secure shelter, because against a marauding tribe there was no guaranteed security in those days in old Persia, where there was no such thing as a strong central government with an effective police force. Girls heavily veiled. Children memorizing Quran verses by heart, but for most of them, this was all they ever learned to read. Children laboring at the age of 8. In the countryside, they might even begin working in the fields at a younger age. These scenes are but a reflection of the autocratic system prevailing in the adult world as well.
I mean, watching this, it really, really brings home how much the Pahlavi dynasty worked to modernize Iran and to build Iran into what it was prior to 1979, right? Like, imagine inheriting this like backwater third world country which is predominantly illiterate. It's a feudal system. People are poor. Just like a third world desolate wasteland. Imagine inheriting that in 1925, and then by 1979, you turn it into a modern, thriving, almost first world country before the Islamic dictatorship took over and then turned it back into a 7th century Islamic hellhole governed by Sharia law. So, um, like watching these videos of like Iran under the Qajar dynasty, because this is still during the Qajar dynasty. This is before 1925. Um, it really like brings to light how hard the Pahlavi dynasty really worked to modernize Iran. And I mean, this is why we Iranians refer to them as Khandan Iransaz Pahlavi, which means the Iran building Pahlavi dynasty, because they literally built Iran, right? From 1925 to 1979, they built Iran. And what they inherited was like again, like a third world backwater desert wasteland. um, and from 1925 to 1979, they basically turned it into an almost first world country. Um, and then that's when the Islamic clerics took the country and, you know, sent it back to the 7th century. So, guys, like this is just wow. I mean, this is why we call them the Iran building family, right?
1906, Revolution. Persia was the first country in the Middle and Near East where a revolution in favor of a democratic constitution occurred and was successful. The constitutionalists, among them quite a number of clergymen, forced the then Shah to abdicate in favor of his son.
Guys, so keep this in mind. There was a um, Persian constitutional revolution in 1906. There's another documentary that I've watched. We've live streamed that documentary as well. It's in the same playlist as this one, so you can go back and find that one. A lot of people don't know that Iran actually became a constitutional monarchy in 1905, basically. So Keep that in mind as we go through, because anyone who claims that, the Shah was a dictator or, all that nonsense, they literally know nothing about Iran, or they are just using the communist, Islamist, Taqiyya talking points, right? Because if you go back and actually check, you'll see that Iran was a constitutional monarchy. And you can see that the parliament at the time, the parliament actually had the power to change monarchs, right? Which is what they did. They're still talking about the Qajar dynasty here, right? So they haven't clarified, but when they're talking about here forcing the Qajar Shah to abdicate and bringing in his son, this is still before 1925. This is a previous dynasty of Iran, the Qajar dynasty.
In 1909, with active Russian military help, the exiled Shah tried to regain power and abolish the constitution, but failed. It was not.
Did you hear that? So did you catch that part with Russian military help, right? Because the Soviets have always had an interest in controlling Iran. So they actually tried to abolish the constitution and take the country because they wanted Iran to become a proxy of the Soviets. It didn't work, but the Soviets did not give up. So after that, they kept on continuing, and then eventually they founded a communist Marxist party called the Tudeh Party. So a lot of the civil unrest under the Pahlavi dynasty was actually funded by Moscow, right? Because Moscow always wanted control of Iran. So even before the Pahlavi dynasty came to power, you can see they were actually funding the previous dynasty. So even within the previous dynasty, there was still Russian interference. And so the Russians just constantly tried. Unfortunately, they were successful in 1979. So part of the reason the Islamic Revolution was successful in 1979 was because of Russian interference, Russian money, and also KGB agents who were in Iran at the time as well. So, the Russian interference goes back like 100 years or more.
Not the first time that Russia intervened in Persian affairs.
Okay, let me go back. That's important. Oh, okay. Wow. They're actually gonna talk about Russia here. I'm pleasantly
the
surprised.
Constitutionalists, among them quite a number of clergymen.
Okay, the fact that they're actually going to be talking about Russian interference, no other documentary has really focused on that. So I've gone from like a 7 to like a, I don't know, like a 9 right now, because a lot of people don't know about that Russian interference. And then when I talk about it, people are like, oh, what's she talking about? She knows nothing. But the fact that I just spoke about it, now this documentary is going to speak about it. Like I'm liking this documentary.
Forced the then Shah to abdicate in favor of his son. In 1909, with active Russian military help, the exiled Shah tried to regain power and abolish the constitution, but failed. It was not the first time that Russia intervened in Persian affairs. Between the population and commercial centers of Europe and the Far East, Iran, formerly known as Persia, lies about midway, a link between East and West. This strategic location a source of constant dispute with her neighbors. The famous Silk Road, the ancient trade route between Europe and China, crossed this country. There also is pressure for a path from north to south. Iran's northern neighbor, the Russian giant, looking longingly at the ice-free harbors on the Persian Gulf. Iran also was a neighbor of India, which until 1947 was England's most important colony. In 1907, Russia and England carved out zones of influence in Iran, in the north for the Tsar, in the southeast along the Indian border for the British Empire. In the First World War, Iran again was the football of the big powers. Russia had established military bases in northern Iran. Turkey, aligned with Germany and Austria-Hungary against Russia and her allies, failed to persuade Iran to oust the Russians. So Turkey sent troops into Iran. In a counterattack, new Russian divisions poured into the northern region, and English troops pushed northward from the Persian Gulf to the Caspian Sea. During the past century, England and Russia again and again wrung economic concessions from the weak Persian government. Russia gained the provinces of Georgia and Armenia from Persia as early as 1813 and 1828. Persian refugees fleeing the invading foreign armies. Toll barriers in the middle of a nominally sovereign state erected by occupation forces. With the help of tribal leaders and local chieftains, the English forcibly recruited a Persian police force called the South Persia Rifles. They even went so far as to free convicted robbers to enlist them in their auxiliary corps.
Yeah, Major, you make a good point about how that worked out for Armenia because under the Qajar dynasty, they were so weak, they gave away the province of Armenia, Armenia being predominantly Christian, right? And then, unfortunately, then, Turkey got involved, and then that's where the Armenian genocide happened. I have a feeling that if Armenia had still been a part of Persia at the time and continued to be a part of Persia, the Armenian genocide might have never happened.
Britain's main interest? Oil. As early as 1901, the Englishman William Knox D'Arcy had been granted a 60-year oil concession. Years of unremitting efforts finally led to the discovery of large oil fields some 150 miles northeast of Abadan. That day, the 26th of May, 1908, marked the beginning of the oil industry in the Middle East. Oil, at that time, being transported on donkeys and horseback. The English and the Russians, who had quarreled over Persia so often, as war allies, were now on rather good terms. But that alliance came to an abrupt end when in 1917 the Bolshevik Revolution was successful. Russia withdrew from the war, although not from her imperialist traditions. In 1920, the Bolsheviks invaded the Persian province of Gilan to help a rebellious tribal leader establish the Soviet Republic of Gilan.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Raider. I appreciate the support. Welcome. I hope you're enjoying. Guys, Raider's the best. He always comes in, he or she always comes in, supports the channel, but they never comment. Raider, if you ever have a comment or a question, let me know in the live stream. We're here, to answer your questions about Iran. So thank you for being here. Glad you're enjoying the live stream.
On Persian territory. When the Red Army withdrew, their puppet regime was quickly overthrown. Tens of thousands of refugees aggravated the misery of Iran's own war-stricken people, the White Russians who had fled the Reds. They came from a country embroiled in civil war into a country in chaos. There was but one military unit in Persia which had anything resembling discipline, the Persian Cossack Brigade. And there was one man, Reza Khan, serving in that brigade, who was to change the destiny.
Guys, can we just say we love Reza Khan, now of course Reza Shah. So this is a pro Pahlavi channel, but guys, pay attention to this part because Reza Khan eventually became the Shah of Iran. We call him, Reza the Great, Reza Shah the Great. We love him. This is a pro Pahlavi, pro Shah channel. So pay attention to his story because his story and his rise to becoming the Shah of Iran is incredible. And he was always such a very humble man. But he loved Iran so much, and what he did for Iran, like no other person comes close except for perhaps his son Shahanshah Aryameh
Of his country. While most of the officers in the Cossack Brigade were Russians, Reza Khan was pure Persian from northern Iran. He was born in a little village in the province of Mazandaran near the Caspian Sea in northern Persia in a modest little house. In August 1920, Reza dismissed all Russian officers and took over command of the brigade. And February 21st, 1921, was the day of Reza Khan's coup d'etat with his Cossacks. He marched to Tehran and overthrew a weak and tottering government. No blood was shed, and his minister...
I mean, it wasn't really a coup d'état because he was reclaiming power from from the Russians who had taken control. But I mean, I don't know why they call it a coup d'état. Because a coup d'état necessarily implies that he went in and he took control and he took control in 1917, but he didn't actually do that. He went in, he got rid of the people who had taken control, and he reinstalled the Qajar Shah at the time.
Minister of War, he first reorganized the Persian army,
See here, let
who
me
was
go
to
back.
change the destiny of his country. While most of the officers in the Cossack Brigade were Russians, Reza Khan was pure Persian from northern Iran. He was born in a little village in the province of Mazandaran near the Caspian Sea in northern Persia in a modest little house. In August 1920, Reza dismissed all Russian officers and took over command of the brigade. And February 21st, 1921, was the day of Reza Khan's coup d'etat with his Cossacks. He marched to Tehran and overthrew a weak and tottering government. No blood was shed, and as Minister of War, he first reorganized the Persian army and then began to pacify the country.
Yeah, so the, it doesn't explain why he did that. So the reason he did that in 1921 is because um, the the government at the time was under the influence of the Soviets and it was turning towards communism. And of course, people in the country didn't want that. So, and the people who were there actually, they had gone in a coup d'etat and they had suspended the government at the time, suspended the parliament. So he went in, he basically got rid of them. So I don't like how they frame that. But what's interesting is that, like they don't a coup d'etat necessarily, a coup d'etat implies you want to go in and gain power and be the leader, right? But that's not what happened. He went in, he got rid of the people who were controlling the Shah at the time. And as you can tell in the documentary, they said he was the minister of war. So he was an advisor for the Shah at the time. So I don't know why they don't give the full picture there.
In order to establish a strong central power, he fought the rebellious tribes and marauding bandits. No documentary film exists of those battles, but these film scenes produced years later give an impression of how the field campaign was fought. It was no easy task for a commander-in-chief who once was heard to exclaim, "If only I had 1,000 rifles of the same caliber." The equipment of his soldiers was still that bad. But eventually, firm control over the whole country was established. National sovereignty was paralleled in the international field. Within
So that's him right there, right? Like the him standing there. That's Reza Khan, soon to be Reza Shah. But this is before he became the Shah.
5 days of the new government's reign, all Russian concessions in Iran were abolished, concessions for Britain granted by the old government canceled, with the exception of the old oil concession.
So that's important, guys, because a lot of the Islamists and communists, in order to justify the Islamic Revolution, they claim that the Pahlavis were puppets of, the British or puppets of the Russians. As you can tell, that wasn't the case whatsoever. In fact, he went in because the Russians and the Brits had too much power. He went in and he basically put an end to that. So again, it's just like that, like is Islamist, jihadi propaganda where they just twist the narrative, right? Like they just lie. Everything that comes out of their mouths is a lie.
The government's troop movements had been seriously hampered by the almost complete lack of adequate roads. One of Reza's first actions was to start construction of a network of main roads, a task accomplished with largely inadequate means, but with much enthusiasm. In 1925, the last Shah of the Qajar dynasty, who had spent most of his time traveling abroad, as here in Rome with Italy's King Umberto, was deposed by the Majlis, Iran's parliament. Reza Khan, then prime minister, is elected Shah.
Okay, guys, so that's really important. Did you hear that? So anyone who says that the Pahlavi dynasty came in through a coup d'etat and, they forced their way in, complete and utter nonsense. As you just heard, I'm going to replay this part because this is important. So as you just heard, it was the Majlis, the parliament itself, right? The democratically elected parliament of Iran got rid of the previous dynasty because they had the authority to do so under the constitution of Iran. And then the prime minister at the time, who was Reza Khan, was then democratically elected to become the Shah of Iran. Do you see that? So no coup, no war, no nothing. So anyone and everyone who claims that the Pahlavi dynasty came to power through like a coup or whatever, either they don't know their history about Iran or they are lying and they hope that you won't go and actually look into it for yourself, right? Let me play this part again because it is critical, guys. It's critical.
Complete lack of adequate roads. One of Reza's first actions was to start construction of a...
Wait, I think I went too far ahead. Let me go back. Okay, here we go.
Province of Mazandaran near the Caspian Sea in northern Persia in a modest little house.
Wait.
But eventually, firm control over the whole country was established. National sovereignty was paralleled in the international field. Within 5 days of the new government's reign, all Russian concessions in Iran were abolished, concessions for Britain granted by the old government cancelled, with the exception of the old oil concession. The government's troop movements had been seriously hampered by the almost complete lack of adequate roads. One of Reza's first actions was to start construction of a network of main roads, a task accomplished with largely inadequate means, but with much enthusiasm. In 1925, the last Shah of the Qajar dynasty, who had spent most of his time
This is the part, okay? Pay attention. In 1925, the last Shah of the Qajar dynasty,
traveling abroad, as here in Rome with Italy's King Umberto, was deposed by the Majlis, Iran's parliament.
So the previous Shah from the Qajar dynasty, who spent most of his time traveling around the world and spending Iran's money and having a blast and partying, was deposed by the Majlis, which is the democratically elected parliament of Iran, okay?
Reza Khan, then prime minister, is elected Shah. Some months later, in April 1926, the official coronation takes place on the so-called Peacock Throne.
So no coup d'etat, no violence, no force. Pahlavi monarchy was brought in through the Majlis itself. So it was all part of the constitution, what happened.
Shah Reza was not the first officer of simple origin to ascend to the Persian throne. 190 years before, Nadir Shah, called the Napoleon of Persia, had preceded him, reunified the country, defeated the Turks, and forced the Russians out of Persian territory they had occupied. Out of Reza Shah's family, his eldest son, Mohammad Reza, is appointed crown prince. Some years later, Reza Shah sends his son to the Swiss college of Rossay. He becomes an excellent soccer player. The years of the government of Reza Shah, later to be named Reza Shah the Great, are the years in which the foundations of a sovereign and modern state are laid, the years in which Iran is reborn. Resurgence of a once great country, ships sailing under the Iranian flag, ports, roads, communication systems, a whole national infrastructure developing, and foreign monopolies inside Iran, for instance tobacco sales or telephone and telegraph lines, nationalized.
Did you hear that? So Reza Shah did the exact opposite of what the Islamists and the communists accused him of, right? Because they accused him of being like a Western imperialist puppet. Meanwhile, it was the exact opposite. He was actually nationalizing all of those industries that under the previous dynasty had basically been monopolized by foreign influence, right? So he was getting rid of all of that. So again, every single lie about the Pahlavi dynasty, when you actually look at what they did in Iran, completely unfounded. And now you're starting to understand why we Iranians, we love the Pahlavi dynasty and we call them the Iran building family, right? Khandan Iran Saz Pahlavi, the Iran building Pahlavi family, because they literally built Iran into what it was before the Islamists and communists took over in 1979.
Perhaps the most impressive achievement, the Trans-Iranian Railway. Work begins in 1927 and is to last for 12 years. Unlike previous undertakings under the old dynasty, this work is financed not by foreign loans, but entirely by Iranian means, through a special tax on sugar and tea. Millions of Iranians are thus contributing to the top priority national task through their personal sacrifice. The first line, from the Persian Gulf to the Caspian Sea, connecting south and north over 900 miles, requires construction of 4,100 bridges and 224 tunnels of an aggregate length of 54 miles. As an engineering achievement, experts consider the Trans-Iranian Railway as more impressive than even the famous Swiss railways.
The Trans-Iranian Railway more impressive than the Swiss railways, guys. Like this is how much the Pahlavi dynasty invested into Iran, right? I mean, the achievements. I don't want to brag, but the documentary said it, not me. So some of you are mentioning in the comments, you know, you've heard many people talking about pre-1979 Iran. It was apparently paradise. 100% it was. And, you know, you stick around. We're live streaming this documentary about Iran before 1979. So we're going to get to that. Right now, we're still in the in the late 20s, early 30s right now.
In 1928, the king of neighboring Afghanistan pays the first state visit to the newly born Iran.
That was, of course, you know, Afghanistan before it fell to the Islamists and the Taliban as well, right?
There are parallels and similar interests of the two states. Like Iran, Afghanistan is a Muslim state. Like Iran, she has the giant neighbor in the north, Russia, and has had to cope with foreign intervention in the past. And the exercises performed as a show for the guest, the traditions of the Zur Hana, the House of Strength, are a...
Wait, can we just appreciate how he pronounced Zurkhune? Let's go back. This was actually kind of cute. Let's appreciate how he pronounced Zurkhune. So for those of you who don't know, Zurkhune is like think of like those group fitness classes. It's similar to that. Think of like the Iranian version of CrossFit. Okay, CrossFit like from 100 years ago, or not 100, like thousands of years ago, because the Zurkhune tradition is thousands of years old. Where literally like people would get together with these weights and they would like do weight exercises while people played music in the background for the rhythm. So it's a very very like traditional Persian thing, a very interesting and cool part of our heritage and culture. But I just let's just appreciate how he pronounces Zurkhune.
There are parallels.
Zurkhune literally means house of strength. So khune is house and zur is like strength. So it's like literally like powerhouse.
Parallels and similar interests of the two states. Like Iran, Afghanistan is a Muslim state. Like Iran, she has the giant neighbor in the north, Russia, and has had to cope with foreign intervention in the past. And the exercises performed as a show for the guest, the traditions of the Zur Hana, the House of Strength, are a symbol of the strength needed to maintain sovereignty in such a precarious situation. Another state visit with another neighbor. Reza Shah, this time not the host, but the guest. Visit to Kemal Ataturk, founder of New Turkey. Reza Shah had long wished.
So Reza Shah and Ataturk were actually like very, very close.
As he states in his arrival speech, to meet Ataturk. Turkey is facing similar problems as Iran. I am very glad to see you in Turkey. Reza Shah's answer, I am definitely glad to have been able to fulfill an old wish of mine to pay a visit to your country.
Can I just say, I will never get tired of watching videos of Reza Shah the Great. I mean, it's just what an incredible, amazing person. And, we owe so much to him for what he did for our country. And yeah, like just such an amazing human being. And, I would say like in terms of the history of monarchs and kings in Iran, in 2,500 years of history, he's like in the top 500%.
Çok mesuduz ki o mülakat günler mağlup olmuş bulunuyoruz. Ben şayet milletin مسؤولين قبل من sizin ayında sizin yanında ergelerin geleceği çok teşekkürler.
One of the reforms common to both countries, emancipation of women. Heavily veiled with the Kador, excluded from...
It was called the Chador, not the Kador. But yeah, so the emancipation of women was actually one of the reasons why the Islamists and the communists did not like Reza Shah, because they thought that, the emancipation of women is against Islam, right? So they didn't like the fact that Reza Khan basically, Reza Khan was giving women the right to choose how to live their lives.
Participation in public life under rigid Orthodox Muslim rule, women and girls under Reza Shah are virtually liberated from their confinement to the house against bitter resistance from large segments of the clergy.
Did you hear that? Against bitter resistance from large segments of the clergy. So it was the Islamic clergy Shia who had a problem with the fact that Reza Khan said to women, you don't have to wear the Islamic chador if you don't want to. The women loved it. Women were happy, right? Like women started dressing like normal human beings, but the Islamic clergy didn't like that. It upset them, right? Because it offended their Allah or whatever.
Girls studying modern household methods, new and healthier nutrition. Hundreds of new schools are built. For the first time, compulsory government-sponsored primary education. The first Persian university is inaugurated. Numerous young Iranians are sent abroad to study with state financing. In addition to the university's medical faculty, systematic medical training is introduced in the army.
Did you hear that? So for the first time since Reza Shah the Great, this is why we call him Reza Shah the Great, right? Because not only did he build Iran, he laid the foundation for modernizing Iran. He made elementary school mandatory, not just for boys, but for girls, right? So both boys and girls now had to have education, right? Remember, like from the beginning part of the documentary, you saw like images and videos of Iranian children in squalor, completely illiterate. They didn't go to school, right? They just had to work the fields, right? But when Reza Shah the Great became the Shah of Iran, he made elementary school mandatory, and that was just the first step, by the way. It continues on, right? But do you see how they were modernizing, and do you see even right back from the beginning, the clergy had a problem. The Islamic clergy had a problem with the Shah of Iran saying that girls should go to school and be educated. The Islamic clergy in Iran had a problem with the Shah saying that women don't have to wear the hijab if they don't want to. So you can now see how, like, even as of the late 1920s, the Islamic clergy were already seeing the Pahlavi dynasty as an enemy, quote unquote, an enemy of Islam, because the Pahlavi dynasty was modernizing Iran and moving Iran forward. The Islamic clergy didn't like that.
Junkers planes, the first step towards an Iranian air force. Along German and French lines, the new Iranian army is being reformed. World War I had proved to the Iranians, a peace-loving people, how badly they needed a strong army for self-defense. From the very beginning, Iran is a member of the League of Nations. Prince Arthur, her delegate, here voting in favor of defeated but now democratic Germany's admittance in 1925.
I love the fact that even, like 100 years ago, this is how Iranian women dressed, right? So all of those Islamist jihadis who say that Iran was always a Muslim country, they have no idea what they're talking about, because this is literally Iran 100 years ago. This is how women in Iran looked and dressed 100 years ago. So you see the Boy Scouts there. The Boy Scouts and the Girl Guides, had a very, very strong presence in Iran. My mom, in fact, when she was a child in Iran, she was part of the Girl Guides. So Iran even had Boy Scouts and Girl Guides prior to the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Like, that's how modernized and advanced and secular we are. You were a wrestler? Oh my gosh. Listen, like did you see the videos of the Iranian powerhouse? Man, like Iranian wrestlers are next level. Like they are top notch. Like they are some of the even today, like wrestling in Iran is a very like very big sport. And wrestling, powerlifting, we do have some of the best athletes in the world. So kudos to you for going up against them. I hope that they didn't injure you too much, but yeah, Iranian wrestlers are something else, and they usually rank pretty high in international sporting competitions. It's just because wrestling is one of those sort of ancient sports that's been a part of Iranian culture for thousands and thousands of years. So yeah, I hope you had a good time with the wrestling.
In 1938, a big celebration in Tehran. The parade of the new Iranian forces is watched by the military attachés from Italy, France, Germany. Celebration of a wedding day. Crown Prince Mohammad Reza is married to Princess Fauzi of Egypt, a liaison which will be unsuccessful. Fireworks celebrating the marriage. There will be other fireworks within only 1 year. War in Africa, not so far away from Iran's frontiers. The Second World War will have its impact on Iran soon.
Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war.
Onward, Christian.
So I have a funny personal story about World War II. So my grandfather, God rest his soul, he's passed away now. Um, when my grandfather was a teenager, he actually got into like a fight with his parents at the time, and then he ran away from home and he joined the British Army during World War II because I guess there was like troops there, like there was a battalion or something there. He told me this story when I was a child. He ran away and he joined like the British Army, as a rebellious teen. And of course he wasn't British, so they wouldn't take him in as like a soldier, but apparently he became like a cook for them. So he actually learned English from the time that he ran away from home during World War II, and joined like a British battalion or something and was cooking for them, and then he learned some English words there. So there you go. Yeah, just random story. And then he went home. He went back home after World War II was over.
Soldiers. Roosevelt and Churchill agree upon the Atlantic Charter, guaranteeing every nation's right to self-determination. But in flagrant violation of the provisions of the Charter, Iran will soon be made a victim of the big powers' conflict. British bombers attack the Iranian fleet and sink most of the ships, causing considerable loss of life. In World War II, the Allies saw the Persian oil fields and India threatened by the Axis powers under Hitler. By summer 1941, German troops occupied the Balkans and were threatening Egypt and moving towards the Don. 1.5 years later, in November 1942, the threat was real. The Germans stood in force on the doorstep of the Nile Delta and in the Caucasus Mountains. Reza Shah had declared his country neutral, but in August 1941, as they had done in the First World War, without forewarning, the Russians and the English invaded Iran. British troops enter Iran from the south, Russians from the north. For the British, one of the main targets is, again, the oil, as in World War I. So British soldiers celebrate the occupation of Abadan. Soon, Russian and British units meet in the middle of a sovereign country, just like occupation powers. The banquet is an Anglo-Russian affair with no Iranians invited. Officially, the capital of Tehran is exempt from occupation, but in reality, very soon it will be a center of foreign activities. The German embassy is closed. Neutral Switzerland for a short while takes over. The presence of some 2,000 German nationals in Iran accused by the Allies of underground activities had served as a pretext for the occupation. The Germans are now interned, then deported. Reza Shah had established much of Iran's foreign trade with Germany since he had wanted to counteract Russian and British influence. Now the Shah himself, here in his last filmed appearance with two of his sons, abdicates and leaves the country.
Yeah, so it was difficult. I mean, Switzerland was able to remain neutral, but again, Switzerland doesn't really have oil or any of the resources that the other countries needed. So Switzerland remained neutral, that was fine. But when Iran tried to remain neutral, um, both the Russians and the British didn't like that.
He will die some years later in South Africa in exile.
We love you, Reza Shah.
As soon as the Shah is gone, rebellious tribes again engage in their private wars and marauding activities. The true masters for the moment, the British and Soviet ambassadors, are of course interested in the security of their soldiers, but not so much in the stability of the government. The Allies at that time calculated that a weak Persian Republican government might be easier to handle than the monarch. To ensure inner stability, the Crown Prince consequently has to act quickly. In Parliament, Mohammad Reza, within a few days after his father's abdication, takes the oath as the new Shah. Under the circumstances, it is almost a new coup d'etat.
What's with this just random use of coup d'etat? It's like you get a coup d'etat, you get a coup d'etat, everyone gets a coup d'etat. Like they keep on using this word coup d'etat without actually knowing what it means. How is it a coup d'etat? The country is a constitutional monarchy. Um, when the king abdicates, of course, the crown prince assumes the throne. That's literally how a monarchy works. So I don't understand where this coup d'etat comes in from. It's just such a weird thing to say. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Like no one said that no one says that about like King Charles, right? Like when Queen Elizabeth passed away and King Charles assumed the throne, that wasn't a coup d'etat. That's how a succession works within a monarchy. And that's the exact same thing here. So very weird. I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to make it seem more dramatic. I have no idea, but it's very bizarre.
Tehran, 1943. This is the city where the
Wait, before we continue, so we just finished the part about Reza Khan the Great. I just want to share something with you guys to give you an understanding of like how much um how much Iranians actually love um, not just the Pahlavi dynasty, but how much Iranians actually love Reza Shah the Great. Guys, so the Islamic Republic has constantly tried to they've constantly tried to smear the Pahlavi dynasty in order to justify the Islamic occupation of Iran. And yet, every single time they've done so, it has failed miserably. A while ago, I don't know how long ago, but at least at least over 5 years ago, the Islamic Republic came out with this TV series about, the Pahlavis or whatever, and the whole thing is like a propaganda piece to try and make them look like these dictators and authoritarians and whatever. And then there's this like one scene where Reza Shah the Great supposedly like beats up an Islamic regime cleric, like he they beat up a mullah, right? We call them akhund in Farsi. So at one point, like the TV series shows a clip of Reza Shah beating up an akhund. By the way, it never happened. He never beat up Islamic clerics. But this is how much Iranians hate the Islamic Republic and how much they actually love the Pahlavi dynasty. Someone actually took that clip, okay, this person here, Dear Mango, and they edited it. So now there's literally a 10-hour video on YouTube called Reza Shah beating an Akhund for 10 hours straight. It has 49,000 views, and I'm just gonna read some of the comments for you here. Where are the comments here? Wait, where are the comments? Wait, show less. Guys, where are the comments here? Oh, there we go. I like this. Wait. Okay. More transcript license. Okay. I can't find the comments right now. But anyway, let me just play this for you so you can get a sense of like how much Iranians love Reza Shah the Great and how much they actually hate the dictators. And like every time that I'm like upset or angry, I will literally search this video and I will just watch it because for some reason it's like ASMR for me, and it's just like, it makes me feel better. So this guy, this guy here is supposed to be like, this actor is, Reza Shah the Great. So apparently he's gonna now like go beat up some, again, like this never happened, right? Like Reza Shah never beat up the Islamic clerics. But the Islamic regime made this propaganda piece to try and defame him. Instead, it backfired because every single time the Islamic Republic tries to put out defamatory propaganda pieces about Reza Shah the Great or Mohammad Reza Shah, Iranians will just use it, and they'll just make fun of the Islamic Republic. I'm just cheering him on at this point. Like, I'm cheering on. And my favorite part here, right? Like the Islamic Republic wants us to think that this evil, demonic Islamic cleric is the good guy, and Reza Shah the Great is the bad guy, right? Which is a complete opposite. Like this evil, demonic Ayatollah is the bad guy, and of course Reza Shah is the good guy. I love when he says Martike Pedar Sukh. That's my favorite part. Anyway, it's literally like just 10 hours of this scene on repeat, and one of my favorite videos on YouTube, right? One of my favorite videos. Like you can literally look it up. It's Reza Shah beating an ahund for 10 hours straight. So if anyone wants to, find it, I'm gonna give it a thumbs up there. So I don't know who Dear Mango is, but whoever that person is, um, you know, like damn it gam, because I swear to God, every single time, yeah, Chelo, you're 100% right. Like this is it's like this emoji right here, like Afadi. So yeah, there you go, guys. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube. Reza Shah beating an ahund for 10 hours straight. It's there. All right. Anyways, we're gonna go back to our regularly scheduled program now. But yeah, I love that clip.
Conference of the Big Three will take place, a conference decisive for the fate of the post-war world. Strangely enough, the Russian embassy was to be the home for America's President Roosevelt as well as for Stalin, while Churchill was living in the British legation. Toward the end of 1943, the Big Three are, of course, preoccupied with the big decisions which would determine their future mutual relationship. In commemoration of the Battle of Stalingrad, a sword of honor is presented by Churchill to Stalin. At that time, quite a few of the British military leaders are convinced that the Battle of Stalingrad not only saved Russia from defeat, but also Iran from a German invasion. Three cheers for Churchill, who celebrates his birthday while in Tehran. A fur cap and other souvenirs of Iranian handicraft.
I did not know that Winston Churchill celebrated one of his birthdays in Tehran. Wow, learn something new every day.
Of the gifts, a tribute from a country whose interests were for the greater part neglected by the occupying powers.
Okay, so you see that frame there? Okay, I guarantee you every single Iranian in the world pretty much has like at least one frame like that in their house. Like it's just such like it's such like an Iranian thing. Like we all have at least one of these frames with like the typical like Iranian design, right? It's like it's similar to how like we all have like one of these, it's not a blanket, but yeah, I guess like one of these like blanket style, Iranian style blankets in our homes too. Like it's just like the quintessential Iranian thing to have.
Mohammad Reza Shah meets Churchill and Roosevelt and Stalin. Owing to Mohammad Reza's successful negotiations, the independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity of Iran is finally recognized by the Allies in a solemn declaration. Meanwhile, an American contingent of 30,000 technicians in uniform had joined the British and the Soviets on Iranian territory. But at least the Americans, visited here by their president, had not come as invaders. In addition to Iran's oil fields, the Allies had another important concern. Russia badly needed weapons and supplies for the war against the Germans, but most of her coastline was blocked by winter ice, and her few ice-free ports were threatened by German submarines. So the route through Iran was very inviting for the supplies which eventually saved Russia. In a study for Hitler, the German General Staff states that all British or American war material which reaches Russia by way of the Near East is extremely disadvantageous to our land offensive. British and American planes are sent to the Soviet Union in large numbers. Out of 14,834 American planes, one-third are delivered via the Persian Gulf. Around 500,000 trucks reach the USSR, of which nearly 50% come via Iran. 88% of these are assembled in Iranian workshops. Later, Iran herself declares war on Hitler.
Yeah, the one thing also they don't mention, I mean, I don't know if they're going to mention this or not, but during World War II, Iran actually took in 100 and I think like 160,000 Polish refugees, um, many of whom were Jewish as well. So a lot of Jews in Europe who were fleeing from the Holocaust actually came to Iran, and then eventually from Iran had safe passage to Israel. I don't know if this is going to get into that, but I just wanted to point that out as well.
Iranian Railway hauled 3 out of every 5 tons of supply delivered through the corridor to Soviet receiving points. Irony of history. Reza Shah forged in the Iranian Railway a powerful weapon against the very Germans whose friendship hastened the wartime occupation and his abdication. The American deliveries alone are sufficient to maintain 60 divisions in the line. So Iran, one of the main keys to the Allied success, is called the Bridge of Victory.
Whoa, look at that. You never hear about that in World War II narratives. You never hear about the Bridge of Victory, which was Iran, one of the key aspects of beating Hitler. No one ever speaks about that.
Iran, in the meantime, suffers heavily from the effects of the occupation. Shortage of goods and the relative wealth of the foreign troops drive prices up 400% in 2.5 years. In their declaration of 1943, the Big Three had promised economic assistance, but during the war, Iran is the last on their list for help. And there are not only the foreign soldiers. Tens of thousands of Polish refugees from Hitler's invasion have come to Iran via the
I just mentioned that. I just mentioned the Polish refugees.
Soviet Union. They too have to be fed. The Allies help, but so do the Iranians, who themselves are short of everything.
Do you see, like, even though the country was undergoing a shortage of food and resources, they still took in tens of thousands of refugees from Poland and fed them all, right?
A Polish-Iranian festival in Tehran. Quite a number of these Polish refugees will stay in Iran even after the war.
I love that there was a Polish-Iranian like celebration during World War II. I love that. You know what? I've always wanted to visit Poland. Poland is such an amazing country. I love the culture. I love the people. I'd love to visit at some point.
Into marriage, still today there is quite a large Polish element, particularly in Tehran.
Again, like guys, this is what our society was prior to like Islam and Sharia law taking over in 1979. So keep that in mind, guys, right? Keep that Iran was hospitable, it was welcoming, everyone could come regardless of ethnicity or background or religion or whatever, right? Like this is in the 1940s, guys. This is in the 1940s, okay? So yeah, like that's what Iran was, and then Islam and Sharia law came and turned the country into a 7th century Islamic hellhole, right? This is what we were before. This is the true Iran. This is the real Iran. This is who we are as a nation and a culture and people. And this is what we are currently fighting to reclaim, right? We want to go back to what we used to be before Sharia law and Islam took over.
The greater part, however, will leave very soon as members of the Polish Brigade recruited in Iran for fighting Hitler. What can be saved of Reza Shah's heritage under the occupation? With most of the power in the hands of the foreign forces, what influence is left for the Shah? In those days, Mohammad Reza Shah takes advantage of the unique role of the Americans who had not invaded Iran and had no imperialist past there, as had the Russians and English. Those war years mark the beginning of a close American-Iranian relationship.
Right? So again, the entire like narrative that the Shah was a puppet of the West, he was a puppet of America, it's 100% nonsense. It's just this fake news, taqiyya, Islamic propaganda that the Islamic clergy and communists, right, the anti-imperialists, they have um, imposed on the Shah in order to legitimize them taking Iran and turning into a 7th century Islamic hellhole governed by Sharia law. As you can tell, even this documentary said, um, there was no, when the Americans came, it was just friendship right from the beginning, and so the allyship and the friendship between Iranians and Americans was actually forged during World War II. That's where the allyship began. Pay attention, guys.
In 1944, when the United Nations is founded, again Iran, as in the case of the League of Nations, is among the first members. But again, as with the League of Nations, she is deceived with her high expectations.
You have created a great instrument for peace and security and human progress in the world. The world must now use it. With this charter, the world can begin to look forward to the time when all worthy human beings may be permitted to live decently as free people. This new structure of peace is rising upon strong foundations. Let us not fail to grasp this supreme chance to establish a worldwide rule of reason, to create an enduring peace under the guidance of God.
But this
I just want to point out the United Nations back then might have been good, but today the United Nations is completely corrupt. I'm actually working on an episode, for my daily live stream, like my regular live stream, which goes live at 12 noon Eastern, Monday to Friday. I actually am going to be speaking about how the United Nations has currently become corrupt, and it's basically just a mouthpiece for communists and Islamists, unfortunately. So the United Nations today is not the United Nations of 1944 when it was founded.
enduring peace is first endangered in the case of Iran. While the Soviets here in Tabriz are celebrating the anniversary of their revolution, Stalin refuses to evacuate their zone despite a 1942 treaty providing for withdrawal of all foreign troops 6 months after ceasefire. Iran's prime minister, intimidated by Soviet threats, gives in to
Guys, just want to point out, so for all of those, non-Iranians who pretend they're an expert on Iran, and they talk about Mossadegh being the prime minister or democratically elected prime minister, here is one of the Iranian prime ministers from the 1940s. So again, these people who talk about this so-called coup or whatever literally have no concept or understanding of Iranian politics or the fact that Iran had prime ministers before and after Mossadegh. And I actually did a live stream about, debunking the whole coup, right? And I'm sure this documentary is going to get into it as well, but I did a live stream as well, debunking the whole 1953 narrative, coup, whatever nonsense that the Islamists and communists put out there. It's in the same playlist as this one. You can go find it. Just look for Mossadegh in my playlist, and you'll find it there. And we go through it extensively. And we gave that documentary. I think we gave it a 10 out of 10, guys. We gave that one a 10 out of 10 because it was very, very good.
Molotov's demands in Moscow, oil concessions and approval of a friendly government in Iran's province of Azerbaijan, which means a communist government. But at home in Tehran, Parliament refuses to ratify the Moscow Agreement, and the Shah orders his United Nations delegate to submit the matter to the Security Council. First case of the Cold War between East and West.
Between the Iranian government and the government of the Soviet Union, it has been agreed that the Red Army evacuate all Persian territory by the 6th May 1946.
Major says the UN was never not corrupt. The last 5 minutes of the Lord of War movie is the absolute truth and always has been. It's a feature, not a bug. Yeah, I mean, you make a very good point there. I mean, we all had high hopes for the UN, but I just those globalist powers, they have taken the agenda too far, right? Like for me, the purpose of the UN should really be to just, be there to prevent wars and also be there to step in when you see wars or genocide happening. And the function has become the complete opposite. So yeah, I have little faith in the UN. I think the UN should be completely defunded, especially since a lot of the money that, taxpayers pay that goes to the UN is actually going to fund terrorism. It goes to fund Islamic terrorism. Like it goes literally into the pockets of like Hamas and Hezbollah. So yeah, like I think the UN should be defunded completely.
Gromyko, surprised by the Shah's unexpected intervention through his delegate and confronted with stern resistance from Iran and the U.S., finally has to agree to Soviet withdrawal from Azerbaijan.
Без участия представителя Советского Союза и, во-вторых, после завершения определенной стадии рассмотрения.
So guys, I hope you're seeing the pattern here because earlier on in the documentary, right, like before the Pahlavi dynasty came to power, in the 1910s, Moscow tried to overthrow the Shah. He was the Qajar Shah with a different Qajar Shah. That didn't work, right? And then again, Moscow interfered during World War One. And now again, you're seeing another example of Russian interference where the Russians were trying to push communism into Iran because the communists, the Soviets have always tried to, they've always wanted control of Iran and Iran's resources. And, unfortunately, after like almost two centuries of effort, they were successful in 1979, right? Because the 1979 Islamic Revolution was actually funded by the Soviets. And there's a reason that after the 1979 Islamic Revolution, the Islamic Republic became a huge ally of Russia, even to this day, where the Islamic Republic is literally selling oil and drones and like military equipment to the Soviets to fund their war against Ukraine. So keep that in mind, guys. This Russian interference happening for a long time. Unfortunately, they were successful in 1979.
4 апреля вынес решение о продолжении его рассмотрения 6 мая.
Sorry, I saw in the comments. Yeah, like Jimmy Carter 100% is at fault as well. Jimmy Carter was such an idiot that he thought that the Ayatollah, just because the Ayatollah so-called, wasn't a communist, that they would be able to control the Ayatollah, but the Ayatollah was actually funded by the Soviets, right? So it all goes back to the Soviets, and Jimmy Carter was such an idiot that he fell for the Russian disinformation and propaganda.
Mr. President, any sovereign state with foreign troops are continuing to remain in its territory without its consent beyond the date authorized by treaty. Such complaints present grave issues under Article 2 of Section 4 of the Charter of the United Nations as to the, quote, the threat or the use of force against the territorial integrity or the political independence of any state or in any other manner inconsistent with the purposes of the Charter.
When the Soviets evacuate Azerbaijan, they leave behind a communist puppet regime which declares Iran's northwestern province independent. Yet this regime is overthrown as soon as the Red Army is gone. Finally, the Iranians are again masters in their own house. But since during the war the occupying powers had enforced priority number 1 for their interest, Iran's economy is in terrible condition. Nothing could be done in all these war years to develop the country. On the contrary, it had been bled white. So Iran is poorer than ever. After re-establishment of central power, Iran must regain international respect. First steps to that goal where even a poor country can compete in the field of sports. Apart from their favorite traditional pastime, polo, the Iranians are preparing themselves for the first Olympic Games after the war. They'll be extraordinarily successful in weightlifting and wrestling.
Oh, where's our wrestling fan in the comments here? See, wrestling is one of those ancient Iranian sports that's just part of our culture and heritage. So of course Iranians are going to be good at wrestling in the Olympics, right? It's part of our heritage. I'm not a good wrestler, no, John. I'm not a good wrestler. Although I do love weightlifting, so I'm a big fan of CrossFit, and I do enjoy powerlifting.
Mohammad Reza Shah himself visits the London Games of 1948 to demonstrate Iran's presence.
I love this. This is back when Iran was a normal country, right?
Peace pigeons. But can there be real peace in a world facing so sharp a contrast between the poor and the rich? 1 year after that visit to London, the first attempt on the Shah's life is made.
So this is the first documentary we have seen where they've actually brought up the attempted assassination. Let's see if they're going to mention who attempted the assassination. I have a feeling they might not. But it was the communists, right? It was the Soviet-funded Tudeh party who attempted the assassination against the Shah because they wanted to take over the country and bring it under the Iron Curtain. So this assassination was funded by the Soviets at the time.
He very narrowly escapes death. Behind that attempt is an alliance of the extreme right and the extreme left, reactionaries and communists. In the following years, 4 more such attempts will be made. In the first years of the United...
Guys, am I good or am I good? It's like, I really should make my own documentary about like Iranian history, especially, in the 20th century, because I could, like, at this point, I could just like recite it off the back, I could just recite it all. And it's like, I watch documentaries and I know exactly where they're going. So there you go. Like, I called it with that one too.
Nation's existence, much is expected from this organization. So the Shah pays a visit to the World Forum to plead for his country.
This plenary session of the General Assembly is now in order. Gentlemen, His Imperial Majesty, Mohammed Reza Shah Pahlavi, Shahin Shah of Iran.
Love you, Javid Shah.
I accept your greeting in behalf of the nation which I represent. Not one of the largest countries in the world, it is true, but one of the oldest and one of the most persistent in honoring all that pertains to the elevation of the human spirit. Here, in this assembly of the United Nations, whether large or small, powerful or weak, countries should meet as equals. Without peace, the smaller countries can make no advance in their efforts to attain high living standards and social justice.
It blows my mind to this day that the communists and the Islamists still try to claim that the Shah of Iran was a so-called dictator, right? Like it's the smear campaign is actually disgusting when you look at the history of this man, when you look at what he has done for Iran, when you listen to his speeches, you realize and you understand how far these Islamists and these communists are willing to lie in order to justify turning Iran into a 7th century Islamic hellhole governed by Sharia law. Shame on them. واقعا shame on them.
With peace, we can do all. For Iran, peace is not an abstraction. We want to use it to further our domestic progress. Therefore, speaking in behalf of one of the smaller countries, I make this appeal. Do not fail us. Give us the future. Give us the inner assurance of peace. Assure us of our freedom and our independence, in which we can contribute to the progress of civilization, each land according to its national culture and tradition. Let us, great countries and small, compete with each other only in the fields of peaceful achievement. Then, but not until then, will mankind, released from fear, live in a brighter, happier world.
The Shah's appeal, though welcomed emphatically by world opinion, does not help very much. United States aid at that time remains negligible. For the most part, Iran is left alone with her problems. The country does possess natural riches which could help to develop Persia. But Iran's oil is being exploited by others. It is the British who get the lion's share of the huge oil profits and who refuse for a long time to grant a greater share to the country from whose soil this wealth is extracted. In this situation, demagogues are ready at hand. The then Prime Minister propagates nationalization of the oil industry, expropriation of the foreign companies. No more concessions for any foreigner. Iran must do everything on her own. The architect of this radical policy, Prime Minister Mossadegh, when the British do not agree, he stops oil production. But Iran at this time has not yet the means to sell the oil on her own. Without the oil revenues, the state is soon bankrupt. While British technicians and their families leave the country, America's Special Ambassador Harriman, as an intermediary, tries to settle the dispute.
They don't mention that Mossadegh was a Russian asset, but maybe they'll mention it further down because they just kind of like throw Mossadegh in there without actually explaining what happened there.
But Mossadegh refuses any compromise. He adheres stubbornly to his policy of all or nothing. Harriman's mission in Tehran fails. In a wave of nationalist emotions with a strict...
They fail to mention Mossadegh's policy of all or nothing was because he wanted to take control of all of the Uh-oh. Is my stream gone? Am I gone? Wait, what? Well, apparently my live stream went down on YouTube once again, as typically happens because I get attacked. So, am I back? Can you guys see me now? All right. Okay. I don't know. Let's see what happens here, guys. We will continue. We'll continue because what I'm doing is allowed. It's called, commentary. So let's continue with this documentary now that we're back. All right, guys. Let's see how long we'll last here. And it's wild to me. It's absolutely wild to me that like literally old footage, right, which is publicly available everywhere, is being claimed as copyright or something. Very weird. But we're gonna soldier on, guys. We're gonna soldier on.
Press censorship imposed by Mossadegh, the voice of reason has no chance. Parliament backs...
Do you guys always notice whenever we get to Mossadegh, that's when like the bots kick in? It's so bizarre. It's always around the time we get to Mossadegh, right? It's so bizarre.
Mossadegh's policy. The British-Iranian case is submitted to the United Nations as well as to the International Court in The Hague. But Mossadegh's arguments do not impress the international authorities too much. Direct negotiations are recommended between Britain and Iran. Mossadegh's policy fails.
Yeah, of course it failed because it was like a Soviet policy. He wanted to impose Soviet rule on Iran.
Backed by the extreme left, the communist-oriented Today Party, and the extreme right,
Okay, so there's one mistake they make here. Okay. Wait, am I back? What's going on here? Can you guys see me? Okay, you guys can see me. All right. Okay. Just want to make sure. So one thing they did not mention here, okay, they said that this is the, far left far left back, um, far left backed party or whatever. It was actually he was backed by the Soviets. So I don't like this part. I don't like this part, guys. Let me go back a few seconds. Let me go back 10 seconds.
Fails. Backed by the extreme left, the communist-oriented Today Party, and the
So they say backed by the extreme left, the communist-oriented Tudeh party. It wasn't communist-oriented. The Tudeh party was actually founded in Moscow and it was funded by the Russians, by the Soviets, right? So the Tudeh party in Iran, anyone who's a member of the Tudeh party, we actually consider them traitors because the Tudeh party is not an organic party in Iran. It was literally created by the Soviets as an attempt to bring Iran under the Iron Curtain and turn Iran into a proxy of the USSR, in the 40s and 50s.
extreme right, Mossadegh organizes riots in Tehran.
And what they don't mention when he says the extreme right, right? The extreme right, that's the Islamic clergy. So these riots and unrest that you're about to see in Iran in the 1950s, right? The so-called like coup d'etat or whatever that the people put out there. Wait, is my stream unavailable? Guys, you have to refresh. If you're not seeing the stream and you're on YouTube, refresh because it's back. Anyways, so the unrest that you're about to see, okay, the unrest you're about to see happening in the 1950s, the documentary, like he just said it was organized by Mossadegh. Mossadegh was a Russian asset. He was funded by the Soviets. And then when they talk about the extreme right, those are the Islamic clergy. So the unrest, it was not organic. It was not the Iranian people. It was the communists and it was the Islamists, right? So this is the context for what you're about to see happening in like 1953.
Their aim, to overthrow the Shah, who has decided to dismiss as prime minister, whose policy he feels is disastrous for the country.
And the fact that the Shah dismissed Mossadegh, that is within the constitutional powers of the Shah. The Shah appoints the prime minister. The Shah can remove the prime minister and appoint someone else. So the reason the Shah removed Mossadegh is because Mossadegh was working for the Soviets. He was trying to take control of the country. He also tried to suspend the parliament, right? So the Shah got rid of him, as he should. That's the purpose of the Shah, to protect the country. And the people you see protesting, they're not regular Iranians. These are the communists who are paid by the Russians. Does this remind you of what you're seeing currently in Western countries, right? All of these jihadi Islamists and the Antifa communist people who are joining together for like the pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas demonstrations and rallies. We've already seen this in Iran in the 1950s.
For a short time, it seems as if this rebellion, directed by the prime minister against the monarch, is successful. But when opposition papers managed to publish the news that Mossadegh has been dismissed, a fact which until then was kept secret by the premier, the wave rolls back. Demonstrations in favor of the Shah, in which the military joins too, although Mossadegh had recently removed many high-ranking officers loyal to the Shah and
right, so Mossadegh had already tried to take control of the military. He removed a bunch of officers, even though he didn't have the constitutional authority to do so. He still did. But yet, as soon as the Shah dismissed Mossadegh, Iranian people came out and they cheered because they love the Shah. They love the Pahlavi family, right? Mossadegh is like a nothing. Mossadegh is like a cockroach compared to the love that the Iranian people have for the Pahlavi dynasty.
Replaced them by his followers.
What? I'm gone again? All right, so apparently my live stream went down on YouTube. So apparently YouTube does not like me talking about Mossadegh. So what we're going to do, because I know a lot of people are watching on X, so I'm going to end the live stream here, and we're going to continue the live stream tomorrow, starting here. And I'm probably going to move a little bit forward. Let me just put a message here. All right, so I'm going to restart, or like, I'm going to finish playing the documentary tomorrow evening. So for those of you who have been watching so far, I hope you've enjoyed the documentary so far. We are at the 50-minute mark, and I guess for some reason, YouTube does not like me talking about Mossadegh, right? So let me just put a message here for people following on YouTube. And I will see you all tomorrow. So far, it's been a very interesting documentary, guys. All right, for those of you watching me on Twitter, thank you for joining. Make sure that you also like and subscribe to my channel on YouTube to help my YouTube channel grow. And oh wait, am I back? Oh wait, people on YouTube are telling me that I'm back. Am I back? Okay. Apparently I'm back. Apparently I'm back. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay, I'm back. All right, guys. I'm going to try and, well, I am on Twitter, but okay. Let me continue. Um, Let me see if I can just like get through the Mossadegh part here. Maybe the issue is just talking about Mossadegh. I don't know. Right? Let me
If
see.
Washington expressed open sympathy for the Shah remaining in power, the Today party was helped secretly but very efficiently by Moscow.
Okay, so that's important, right? So the two-day party, Mossadegh was part of the two-day party. Um, he was, he was funded by Moscow. Guys, I am streaming this on X, but there's no conversation on X, right? So people are the only, people who watch on X are those who aren't necessarily able to join the conversation on YouTube. And like I don't see the comments on X. So if you go to X and you comment there, I don't see what you're posting. So that's why I'm trying to get people to come to YouTube. But anyway, so at least this documentary mentioned that Mossadegh was funded by the Soviets, right? Let's see if we can get through this part.
Mossadegh's house from which he had fled through the back entrance only to be captured within one day. Mossadegh's trial for high treason. He had always been sick and made a show of the sickness at every suitable occasion.
The guy was never sick. He was faking it. He was faking his sickness. All right, I want to like get through this part.
But the old system of concessions definitely is abolished. For the first time in her modern history, Iran is now sovereign in every field.
Okay. So we skipped through the Mossadegh part because apparently YouTube doesn't like me pointing out that the whole narrative about the 1953 coup is a lie. But anyways, we got over that, so we're good. We can comment on the rest of it. And they gave a pretty accurate depiction of what happened. What again? Should I wait, guys? I mean, this is crazy. It's literally the name. Wow. So, I guess I can't say the M word, right? I can't say the M word here because the stream, like whenever I speak about M and whenever I point out the false narrative about M, um, okay, I'm back now. This is wild. This is so bizarre. Okay. I think I'm back. Okay. 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 This is an adventure, people. This is an adventure. Like, I don't know. I mean, like this is literally videos from like the 1940s. Well, now we're in the 1950s and wow. Okay. This is very interesting. Okay. So, okay guys, so we are at the 53 mark right now, 53-minute mark for this documentary. Um I think I'm going to stop the documentary here and let's finish watching the second half of it tomorrow night because I feel like I don't know. I don't know. Like obviously there's a target on my back right now. So we'll stop here. We'll finish the rest tomorrow. We'll take we'll have a clean break, a fresh start. Um and yeah, we'll finish the second half tomorrow night. And but so far for this documentary, as of right now, I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. The only reason I'm giving it a 9 is because they referred to Mohammad Reza Shah taking the throne as a coup d'etat, even though it wasn't. And then they also referred to Reza Shah the Great um, as a coup, even though that wasn't either. So yeah, but I'm at a 9 right now, 9 out of 10. So, anyways, I hope you enjoyed the documentary so far. This live stream watch party. And yeah, if you enjoy my channel, make sure to like and subscribe. If you want to support me, memberships are open. And we do have a members only community chat where I communicate with you guys and we have conversations. Behind the scenes. So yeah, thank you to all the members. Thank you to all of the mods. I hope that you enjoyed this live stream so far. I will see you guys tomorrow at 12 noon for my regular daily show. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the pro-Palestine terrorists who attacked Jews in Toronto. There's some very scary, very horrific footage that's coming out. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the rising anti-Semitism in Toronto. We're going to talk about Islamic radicals and how they've become more emboldened. We're also going to talk about how Olivia Chow is an embarrassment, and Olivia Chow has basically become a tool for appeasing and placating the Islamic terrorists who are currently running Toronto. So yeah, see you all tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern. Thank you, everyone. And as always, Payanda Iran, Javid Shah.